Welcome into Gopher Basketball Weekly with Ben Johnson. I'm Justin Gaard. No Mike Grimm today. I don't know if he got lost in Ann Arbor celebrating the Gophers' victory over the weekend, but he's taking the day off, so it's just Coach Johnson and me today. And you didn't leave him in Ann Arbor, did you? He did come back with you. Is that confirmed?
I'm pretty sure I saw him on the flight back.
Okay, so he's somewhere. He's missing in action, but we'll muck through it for the next hour or so. And obviously, a lot of good things to talk about after the Gophers beat Michigan on Saturday at Chrysler Center, 75-65. They improved to 8-1 on the season and host Texas A&M Corpus Christi tonight, 7 o'clock. And back at Williams Arena, gophersports.com for info if you'd like to join and check out that game. So let's start with the aftermath of the Michigan game first, Ben. I'm curious just the response, like when you have a big win like that, who do you hear from? How many people do you hear from? Like, what's the next 12 hours like when you go on the road and get a big win on a Saturday?
It's definitely good problems to have, that's for sure. But no, your phone gets hit up from everybody. Had obviously Mark, Julie, President. That was a good one to get.
Yeah.
Friends, family. You get the random shout out. Matt Leinart gave me a shout out. But it's definitely that's what we talk to our guys about is you want to keep that feeling of winning. Like there's nothing better than the feeling of after a hard fought game that you get from winning. And, we just try to bottle that up and never try to lose that.
Well, I say that about the Wolves a lot, because I think it was similar on Saturday. The response I saw from the outside was incredible, right? I get text messages when you guys do well, right? I have nothing to do with it. I'm just, an observer that works with the program in cases like this. But I always say, for the Wolves or for any team, it's man, you just give a little, you give them a reason to believe. And man, people jump on quick. Now they might jump back off. Super. I mean, that's sports, right? But it goes to show you, you win, you get people involved, and everybody feels a part of it, and then that's when the magic happens.
Oh, there's no doubt. And like you said, it 100% is sports, which I get. Everybody wants to be around a winner. I don't care what line of work you're in or what you do. It's good to associate yourself with winning and with winners. And that's the cool part, especially about our fan base in our state, is I do truly believe, when we're playing a good brand of basketball and we're able to win games, that you get this outcrying of support. And, that's the motivator is, I remember the first game at the barn, you look up and you say, okay, here's what it looks like today. Yeah. How long can it take us until we get it where you look up there and you're like, wow. But again, we got to continue to do our part and put a good product on the floor and win games.
So we talked about that. You beat Michigan. From your perspective, why did you beat Michigan? How did you beat Michigan on Saturday? What was important?
I felt like we learned from Michigan State. I think, obviously not to take anything away from them. They're a very, very good team, very good program, obviously well coached. But I think our guys knew that we didn't play up to our standard. Especially defensively, just guarding the three, having an aggression, playing with confidence. I thought, especially early, shots didn't fall. We got a little tight for whatever reason. We just weren't our normal selves. And again, Michigan State had a lot to do with that. But our mind frame just wasn't what it normally has been. And so we were able to flip that, and we were able to come out and play loose, play aggressive. Held Michigan to, I think, 17% from three. Yep. Made shots beginning, middle, and end because we were confident. We weren't worried about the miss. We were just worried about being aggressive, and that's how we have to be, playing on the attack. So I think our guys just did a great job with the game plan, following it to a T, having confidence in themselves, and then when you're on the road, being that band of brothers, being connected, and that you only got each other to rely on.
3 of 18, Michigan was from three, and it seemed cumulative. I mean, there was a stretch where it was just miss, go for a rebound, miss, go for a rebound, and you're going down and just continuing to extend the lead. So 3-point defense in general, what is important when it comes to defending the 3-point line?
Obviously, everybody does it different. For me and what we do here, we really want to force teams to shoot tough twos, or what I call tough twos. So, we try never to get two guys on the ball. If a guy gets beat off the dribble, we want to trust that they're going to stay in the play and eventually make up ground and do enough to affect the shot or force a tough two. I think a lot of times, especially in college, you get two on the ball. Now you're in the drive and kick game where it's drive kick three or it's drive kick to another drive kick to another drive kick. And before you know it, your defense is worn down and they're at the rim. So we just try to force teams to shoot, twos, to be honest. And I think with analytics now and all these, not all these, but a lot of coaches thinking that it's either layups or threes, and they discourage the twos. If we can get a team to shoot twos and not threes, and we're a good 3-point shooting team, I think the numbers can kind of sway in our favor.
So one of the things about your team that was a concern in the Big Ten was, and it's just legit because there's so many great big men in the league, right? I mean, there's just some dudes that play the, either the 4 or the 5 position. And you look at Dickinson, who's maybe as good as they come, certainly had a great year last year. So you look on paper and go, okay, how are they going to stop this guy? And I'm sure you're thinking the same thing. That's your job, to figure out a way. And he had 19 points, and obviously he had an impact, but it wasn't the overwhelming mismatch that it might have looked like on paper. So what was key to going up against him, and how did you kind of frustrate him throughout the day?
Yeah, no, I thought our guys did a great job with kind of our defensive scheme and what we tried to do. I thought Eric and CD were really good with early post defense. I think it's big with somebody that big and that good. If they're just able to go block to block and post up with 2 feet in the paint, it's almost over. You can't crowd it. You can't double. They're right at the rim. It's just, you're not making them have to make an adjustment. And I thought those guys did a great job of meeting them early, forcing them off the block, getting them kind of that extended post. And, he's obviously a very, very, very good, all league guy. You're not going to shut him down, but we also didn't want him to go for 40. So I think, again, 19, we're good with that. We just wanted to make him work for every catch and make him work on every shot. And I thought that Eric and CD did an incredible job matching his physicality and making him take, tough contested shots with a body or over hands.
So how do you not turn the ball over for an entire half? That to me was I had to look at that a couple of times. As a coach, it's a coach's dream, right? Because your margin for error in the Big Ten for any team is going to be small. Like, you don't want extra possessions, obviously, but 0 turnovers and a half, I think 4 total for the game. That's about as clean as you could possibly want, right?
It was. I was probably more mad that the 2 we got in the second half were on 10-second violations. Yeah. Where it's like, fellas, like we've done a good job in our press break, like bring it up with urgency, which we talk about all the time. And, but again, to go on the road and beat a program like Michigan, and win any game for that matter, you have to have all the details. You can't have slippage. And I think turnovers is a huge parameter for us that, we got to value the ball because we can't have empty possessions, especially possessions that might translate into offensive scores for the other team. So guys did a great job of just being ball tough. And we've actually done that all year. I think, we were one of the best in the country of taking care of the ball. And it's like, I alluded to it the other day. It's like, in baseball, you don't talk about it. That pitcher's on that hot streak, you just leave them alone. Yeah. You never talk about it. You're on to the next play. And our guys know what to do, and they know the importance, and they know the value that we put on every possession and making sure we get a good one and take care of it.
You've talked a little bit about, as a head coach now, when you call a timeout, for example, and then you're like, oh, this is up to me now. Like, I'm drawing the play up, whether it's Pitt, whether it's Mississippi State, whatever. So what's it like? Take me in your head a little bit as the second half is developing. And you're playing great defense, as we mentioned. You're limiting them to one shot. It's just miss after miss after miss for them, and you're coming down, and the lead's going from 4 to 6 to 10. You have a couple opportunities, I think, with some threes to even extend it to double figures there at 10. And I'm wondering, like, because how Michigan's going to make a run. I mean, I'm sure in your mind you're always thinking, when's this run going to start? They're at home. They're a good team. But as you're just kind of extending that lead, take me in. What are you thinking about as you're trying to finish that game as well?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, especially in that game, is I wanted to continue to not play to lose. I wanted to play to win and to be the aggressor and to not, you almost say, fellas, don't worry about score. Don't worry about time. You just don't want it to end. You just have that mentality. We're going to play here. We're going to be all day. We don't want it to end. And you try to take away the mental piece of it in terms of being tight or playing, too conservative. It's like, no, let's be aggressive, but be smart. And play the way that we played to get us and build this lead. And then you got to play with a lead. We talk about that in a lot of timeouts. When you have a lead, You got to learn how to play with the lead. That's one of the great things I learned from Coach Miles. There's a difference between playing with the lead and not, and understanding that, like, you have enough points to win. Now it's about stops, consuming yourselves with getting stops, getting rebounds. If they don't score, you don't have to score because you're up 10. The game's over, all that type of stuff. And then you're trying not to think about all the times, and we've been in that position before. I've been there as a player and as an assistant, where you're up 10 at Michigan and somehow it doesn't go well, your way with 4.5 minutes to go. And so you, as a coach, you're battling that as you're looking up at the clock and you're like, all right, there's 4:30. Then you look back up, you're like, there's 4:15 left. And you feel like it should say 2 minutes. So you're trying to battle that, like, don't think about the negative, worry about the right now, and you have the lead and finish it the right way.
Well, I appreciate the honesty, because I feel like that's what all of us are thinking about. So it's fun. And obviously you can't really think about it, but you have to address it and move on from it. Because I even thought, like, and you can correct me because you've watched it probably a bunch, but when you had those, I think Peyton had a 3, and I think Jamison had a 3 opportunity that I think would have taken it to, like, from 10 to 13. And they were kind of quick, like they were kind of heat check a little bit. I think Jamison's was, but it's like, as a coach, you're like, well, I want him to shoot it. He's on fire, but it's like, oh man, maybe we could have gotten a better one there. Like, what's the yin and the yang there when there's possessions like that?
Yep. It's funny you say that, because I learned this at Northern Iowa with Ali Farokhmanesh. So Ali made the shot against Kansas, and everybody's like, oh man, that was one of that. No. Yes. But that's just how we played. Yeah. Ali had done that in practice and done that all year. Well, conversely, this is how we play. And I think there's 2 things to that. I don't ever want to get away from what we do, because then guys are going to look at me like, okay, coach is tight, or wait a minute, like we've been playing this certain style or brand all year. Why are we not continuing to play that now? So I want to make sure they understand our identity and no, this is what we do. But then I also think, if you remember, with about 1.5 minutes to go, Jamison got the ball swung to him on the right wing and was wide open. I mean, wide open. I think at that time we were up 6 or 7. He was going, he had 27, was feeling it. He could have easily shot that to try to really put the dagger in and go for 30, and he was hot and feeling it. But it's that difference of, he understood, okay, there's how we play, and then there's playing smart. And he ended up dribbling it out, taking a more couple, time off the clock, and we eventually got fouled, made some free throws. But I think that's what I love about this team, is they understand, okay, here's how we play. Time and score also comes into play, and we're also going to be a smart team and realize that, like, look, that is how we play, but like not right now. and you know what I mean? And honestly, it was a heads up play. I made sure our guys saw that yesterday in film, that like, this is smart basketball. This is winning basketball. Like, when you talk about doing things, to win games, this is what it is right here.
So take us into the locker room after. We've all seen the picture where you get absolutely crushed. I mean, those are the things when you're 100 years old, you hope you remember, right? I mean, your first Big Ten win on the road against Michigan with everybody just absolutely crushing you. What was that like?
It was like my first win. You're so in the moment. I hadn't even thought about my first Big Ten win. I hadn't even thought about, everybody saying it, oh, you guys won't win a game in the league. I never thought about, well, damn, in the first week, we've already won our game. You're so caught up in the moment. And then when I walked in and you see the dudes and they're excited, and the next thing I know is they are just going to work and on the water. And it honestly, it was one of the coolest pictures I've ever seen, and it is one of those things that's like, man, that is special. And to just more than anything, to see our guys, man, like, excited the way they are, and together, guys that played, guys that didn't play, walk-ons, assistant coaches. I think everybody in that locker room was like, man, we all did it. And that's what you want, because that's what it does. To beat Michigan on the road, everybody has to be connected like that and feel like, man, we all did it. But just to see the joy in our guys' faces, the locker room post game, the bus post game, the plane rides post game. There's nothing better than winning on the road.
Nothing better than watching it as well. We're just getting started here on Gopher Basketball Weekly with Ben Johnson. Guards in today. Grimmer is off. He will be back next week. Sunbelt Business Advisors should be on your team roster if you're buying or selling a business, and there's never been a better time to sell than right now. Get your Sunbelt no-cost confidential business valuation today. Visit sunbeltminnesota.com. That's sunbeltminnesota.com. More to come here on Gopher Basketball Weekly with Ben Johnson from Learfield. Welcome back to Gopher Basketball Weekly with Ben Johnson. I'm Justin Gaard. Grimmer off today. He'll be back next week. Want to remind you the University of Minnesota Bookstore is proud to support Gopher Athletics and Gopher Basketball Weekly with Ben Johnson. You can go to bookstores.umn.edu for the latest in novelty and apparel. Get last-minute holiday gifts there, too. It's bookstores.umn.edu. Continuing on the trend from the Michigan game, Ben, Jamison Battle obviously had a decent night. 27 points. He was going for you. You've talked about it. There's going to be different guys on different nights for this team, and that's already happened a number of different times, but it seemed to be his night on Saturday. What did he have working?
He was really good, especially in the second half. I thought two things really sparked it when I knew we were going to have a good night. I think it was the first possession of the game. Luke Lowy got the steal late and was able to go length of the floor, body contact, make the layup. So now all of a sudden you got Luke going, and you got Luke in the right mindset. And then EJ got going early in that first half. Yep. So now you got EJ going. I feel like with Peyton and Jamison, they're going to find a way to get themselves going. The key for us in big games is, can we get those other guys offensively, especially early, playing with confidence? And then JMO, again, he does what he does. He was able to rattle off when it was 21 points in the second half. But the best part about that is now you got him going, but you've got built-in confidence from EJ, who had like 11 in the first half. You've got Luke, who knows he's in the game. So now it's like you got four guys that are all feeling really good when it matters.
And how important is that? Because I think you even mentioned it post-game. I think Tom Izzo mentioned it, like Jamison's going to be on the top of scouting report, just like you go into a game, top couple of players, you're going to have a plan for them, especially early. So to even have the patience with the quote unquote, bigger names, or the guys that are going to fill the box score up, to say, hey, it might not come early, but just keep the faith here. We'll get you going at some point, but to have those other guys knowing how much attention the top guys are getting.
Oh, without a doubt. And again, they need to use that to their advantage, because teams are going to be so keyed in on Jamison and Peyton a lot of the time, where now EJ, Luke, Eric, Charlie, whoever comes in at those other spots are going to be able to take advantage of that and be aggressive, make plays, live downhill, get shots, attack closeouts. Again, anytime we can get 4 to 5 guys in double figures, I think that really speaks to our chances of winning, and guys being into the game. We're not good enough to have it be the Jamison or Peyton show. Right. We need to have everybody feeling good and ready to contribute and impacting, because at the same time, they're good enough players. Like I tell Luke all the time, I tell EJ, like, you guys are good players, like really good players. Go out there and play free and let it rip.
Luke has taken some hard falls, man. He had the one against Michigan State. He had the other one against Michigan. I appreciate his fearlessness, because he gets pounded when he goes in that lane, man.
Well, that, and then, he just throws his body around. It was a loose ball, and he's diving like Rodman styles, fully out, doesn't get it, but that's just Luke. He plays 100 miles an hour. He's got one speed. He's like that in individual workouts. He's like that in practice. And that's what I love about him. The dude is a competitive bull, and it's a lot easier to kind of try to crank guys down than crank them up. But Luke's always on 10, and I think he sets that competitive edge and that competitive tone for our team.
Back to Jamison, you were on with Dan Barrero on Sunday morning on the Fan, and I thought it was funny. We talked about recruiting him, and when he left George Washington, you were still at Xavier. And so you obviously had a relationship with him. You knew him, went to the same high school, all of that. And so you're selling him hard on going to Xavier, I imagine. And then you got to flip the switch once you get the Gopher job. Like, take me through that process. Like, obviously, a lot of the recruiting is going to be about the relationship you have with them, and that's going to be no matter what school you're at. But just how weird was that to say, hey, I know I've been telling you for a month that Xavier's the place. You should come to Cincinnati, but I'm going to the U. I think you should too.
No, it was interesting because it was him and EJ. And I actually probably recruited EJ a little bit more at Xavier a little bit earlier, but it's the same script. Now all of a sudden the tables have turned and your message is completely different. The positive is I wasn't going assistant to assistant. That would have been a much harder sell. Now you're going, hey, I'm believing in you, but now I'm the head coach. So
Right.
there's a little bit more juice with that. But Jameson had a ton of options. He could have gone to any Power 5 conference. He was hot on the market. I knew we'd have a chance. I honestly thought it was going to be a dogfight, and it was. I mean, we had to do our job, and we had to recruit him the right way. But I think now you're seeing why he's so valuable to what we're doing and valuable to our program, and he's only going to get better. That's my thing with him and with everybody is this is your chance to be greedy. Let's not stop now. Let's not make the highlight of our year winning at Michigan, although that's cool and that's great. We don't want that to be our highlight. And Jameson, we don't want that to be your individual highlight. Like, you want more. And, these are the reason why these guys came here, to be put in this position. And now let's take advantage of it.
Take me back. Let's talk about Michigan State here quickly. It was a great crowd. I thought there were times where, I think I've told you this, like, it felt to me, and I've been to a lot of games, not as many as Chris Hockey now, who's a season ticket holder apparently, but I've been to a lot of games, and I've felt the crowd. I try to observe what the crowd is thinking and kind of what they're feeling. And it felt like they were there with you. Obviously you wanted to play better. You don't want to get down by 19, but there were certain points where it was like, okay, they're there with this team. They like what's going on. So before we talk about the specifics, like, what did you just think about the night in general?
Oh, I thought the night was awesome. Outside of obviously the outcome, I thought our student section was unbelievable. I mean, they were all the way up to the top, and they brought the energy. They really set the tone for the arena. I thought they were great. I thought our fans were great. We just had to do a little bit better job of giving them something late in that second half, early to be rowdy about. But I thought they were with us. I agree with you. I think they've embraced this team a little bit, and they enjoy the style of play. I think they enjoy our players, the brand of basketball, and how our guys compete. And again, hopefully, we stumble there, but we win at Michigan. Hopefully these next couple of games starting tomorrow or versus Corpus will bring that energy back, because they do. I can't say it enough how much it's a home court advantage. Izzo even told me after the game, he said, man, that this place is going to be back. And he was talking about our crowd, and that matters. And we can't do it and have the success that we want to have without having an unbelievable fan base and an unbelievable home court advantage.
You mentioned what maybe you learned from that game. Expound on it a little bit in terms of defensively, because obviously they've got some dudes that can just make shots. I mean, 44, there were a couple times where it was like he just decided he was going to take a couple dribbles and shoot that lefty jumper, and it was curtains. There wasn't a lot you could do about it. But how much do you think, going through that Michigan State thing helped you for Michigan in terms of what you had to kind of learn?
Oh, a ton. I mean, I think, that Michigan State game, again, it was another new, it was the first time a lot of our guys, minus probably Peyton and Eric, had played in front of that many people. The first time that they had played in a Big Ten game, which is different. You can have non-conference, you can have Big Ten ACC Challenge, but when everybody's playing for a championship and it started that night, it's different. The intensity level is different. The expectation is different. The spotlight, it's a little bit hotter. So you're dealing with all that stuff, and you're dealing with a really good top 25 team, and so that the margin for error is that much less. And I just thought that we were a little bit on our heels. I don't think we were as aggressive as we normally are defensively in all of our schemes, especially guarding the three. I thought we were a little tentative on the ball. It was too easy for those guys to shoot over the top or jab into a pull-up. And so we learned from that, and we learned that that's not how we play, and that's not going to help us win games. And so our guys were able to flip it and really change it and get that aggression and get our mentality back for that Michigan win.
And what is the key to, like you say, being more aggressive on the ball? I think you kind of hinted at it earlier about you're not really going to help a lot, right? The guys are responsible. Like you have your guy, you got to guard him. If you get beat, you got to find a way to scrape back. So what types of things are you emphasizing when it comes to being aggressive on the ball like that?
Yeah, it's stuff we emphasize every day in practice, where it's hard closeouts. You're closing to take away the shot and play the drive. You got to be able to do both. But then it's being up in the ball. And we talked a lot about, you look at Gabe Brown, who's 6'8". Well, I don't care if you're 6'3" or 6'4". He could always get a good look because he's got those 4 inches. Yeah. And so you've got to really make him feel you, meaning you can't be off the ball. You can't give him a cushion. You got to take away his airspace. And I just felt like, for whatever reason, guys were just, they were a little lax, and those closeouts were just a little soft. And in this league against good players, if you get a soft closeout and they can rise up and get a clean look, they're going to bury it more times than not. And so we were just so much more aggressive with our stance, with our positioning, crowding the ball, forcing the drive. Then eventually it gets to a point where you're making them miss. There's a difference to me between, hey, let's hope they miss and let's make them miss. You got to kind of create your own luck.
Well, that happened at Michigan for sure. That's what I felt is you could tell that each miss had a cumulative effect on them. And you were clearing the rebounds too, which is another huge part of this, right? And that's something that's going to be an emphasis for you all year long, is not giving up second chance points. And you're going to be at a size disadvantage, more often than not. But how important was that just in the Michigan game? It's like, it didn't look like Michigan was getting a lot of second cracks at the thing.
No, it's everything. I mean, I think it's no secret. Everybody knows that we don't really crash the offensive glass with multiple guys. That's just not how our team is built. That's not how our team is made up. That's not, to me, puts us in an advantage to win a game. And so on the flip side, if you're not going to crash, you got to make sure the other team doesn't get second and third opportunities to score. You got to limit them to one and done. And we challenge our guys with that heavy, especially in conference play against bigger bodies, where we feel like we can get to a point where we're forcing contested shots, and those contested shots fall short. We've got to make sure they're one and done. We can't let teams live on that offensive glass. And our guys, again, they did a really good job bringing physicality, multiple guys on the ball, swarming it, just having a nose for it and going and getting it.
When we come back, we will get to the stretch four. We'll also talk about Texas A&M Corpus Christi, the opponent tonight at Williams Arena. It's a 7:00 tip. The Gophers are 8-1, now 1-1 in the Big Ten. It's Guardsy here. Grimm is off this week. He'll be back next week, and it's Gopher Basketball Weekly with Ben Johnson from Learfield. Welcome back to Gopher Basketball Weekly with Ben Johnson. I'm Justin Gaard. It's stretch four time. It's Grimmer's favorite segment because he doesn't have to do anything, and he's not even here for it this week. So we won't be too wild. We won't be too crazy, Ben, but I am curious. We're going to talk about a lot of your firsts as first-year head coach, and it's medicine you're going to have to take this year. I'm sure you're probably sick of having to answer the questions. You're like, hey, look, we're 8-1. I know what I'm doing. Like, let's stop with this first-year head coach stuff. But I am curious. We talked a little bit about it in the first segment. Just the last 36 hours, like since you beat Michigan. I mean, you talk to players all the time about the handling of success, and let's make sure that this isn't our highlight of the season. But as a head coach, you win like that, all of a sudden your day probably changed on Sunday from what you thought it was going to be. And it probably changed on Monday. Like, how have you dealt with what comes with the success? Like, all of a sudden now your phone is blowing up. You're asked to do more things than you ordinarily would do. By the way, you got a game on Tuesday night that you've got to prepare for, like all the things that go with it. Like, how have you found that?
I feel like, and I'm open to talking about it a lot to our guys, because, it is real. I talk to them about, and I love the media. This is nothing against the media, but the rat poison. I played them the Nick Saban clip because it's real. And I told them, I said, fellas, this is not me being the old head coach. This is me saying, like, I deal with it too, like everybody does. And here's how you got to handle it. And I just try to look at it. I've been fortunate in this profession to be on both sides. And so I know it's a slippery slope, and you almost, as a coach, living like this sick paranoia of, you never want to revert back. And so it's just that mental mind game of enjoying it, being in the moment, but then also not losing perspective and understanding that, we have a game to win and compete tomorrow. And so what we did against Michigan is great. The notoriety is great, but you can't get caught in, sucked into it. You can't worry about the Twitter and the social media and the Instagram. You got to focus on the job at hand, and really almost like, border yourself in, and you don't pay attention. Like I've done a pretty good job consciously of trying to, I only follow certain people during the year, because good or bad, it's not good. Like, good or bad, it doesn't, like, no one wants to hear the bad. I don't care what anybody says, it affects you. So you can't hear that. But then the good is just as bad. Like, you can't constantly be in a world where everybody's telling you how great you are and think that that's not going to affect your day to day. And so it's like enclosing yourself and just worrying about your team and worrying about the day at hand.
And how do you compartmentalize, like, even going into the Michigan State game, right? You guys beat Mississippi State, great win. Here comes the Spartans. You want the barn filled. you were out front on that, right? On social media, making media appearances, giving away tickets yourself, like all of that stuff. It's important. You're doing it for very specific reasons, but how do you keep all of that straight of, all right, this is my time for this. This is my time for that. I've got people to help me with this. And cause you're very hands-on, I know, and you want to be involved, but you also have a good staff. So you probably have to delegate more than a head coach wants to, but how have you found that compartmentalizing of all the different things as you try to build this thing and get people fired up about it?
Yeah, you definitely want to have the balance too. You try as best you can to not like overemphasize a game because they're all important. But at the same time, in the building this, I knew we had to do whatever we could for that first Big Ten game to try to use the momentum that we had. That's the fun part about at that time being, 7-0, is that you got to use that to your advantage. But then again, always knowing, you're one loss away from it spiraling the other way. And so you're just trying to maintain kind of that sense of knowing that, okay, we're here today, but if we're content with this, if we're happy with this, if we give into human nature, if we buy into what people are telling us, it can be a slippery slope.
Is it nice just to get back out onto the court and just go back to work, especially after the last 10 days or so when people have really started paying attention to what's going on?
Yes, because you want to be around your guys as much as you can so that you're try to kind of deliver that message all the time to them, because you do worry about that. And I get it. I've been in the locker rooms where I know what those guys are talking about. And I know the noise they're dealing with. And so the more we're around them, we can kind of, straighten them up and say, look, fellas, I get it, feel good. But at the same time, stop is important. And I think you got to make sure you address it and talk about it and understand that we're the same guys that everybody predicted to finish last. And it's a long league. So we could potentially still do that. Like, we haven't arrived. This isn't like the end of the year, fellas. It's the first 2 games in a long stretch of basketball, and a lot can change. And it's just make sure we have the perspective of we still have to be the hunters. That nothing has really come to full fruition. Like we haven't done anything yet.
So one thing I did want to talk to you about today was, you've got now 9 games kind of with your staff, and you're deliberate about who you brought in recruiting wise with players, but also with your staff. It's important, right? Especially, I mean, you talked about that in the interview process as a first-time head coach. Like, the staff was always going to be very important. You obviously bring in Coach Thorson, who I want to talk about, Jason Kemp and Marcus Jenkins as well. But like, how have you found just kind of working with this group, from getting to know some of them? And I've obviously known Thor a long time. It seemed like you really found guys that you kind of shared your vision and ethic a little bit. And I'm just curious how through these first 9 games, you guys have found your rhythm working together.
Yeah, no, I think the staff is one of the most important things that you do when you put together people that are going to impact your program. I really believe that I hit a home run with the guys that I'm able to work with every day. Again, we have the same vision that's on and off the floor, the same, morals, ethics, how we treat our guys, how we coach our guys, how we know it's about winning, but it's also about life, how to recruit, in game, how to scout, how to prepare, how to work, all that stuff. Like I said, I know I hit a home run, and my stats been unbelievable. No head coach does it by themselves. And so in order to really advance a program and to build it the right way, you got to have great people that you work with on a day-to-day basis. And the energy that these guys bring, the attention to detail, I think we push each other every day to find ways to constantly improve our program and get our guys better. You
obviously know Dave, forever, since like 6th or 7th grade. So if I remember correctly, it's the first time you've actually worked with them. So what's that been like? I mean, for a guy that's been in your life forever, probably one of the most important people in your life, to now be in this capacity working with him, where you're his boss, which I'm sure is interesting for you and him, but it's not like a boss employee type of relationship. I'm just curious, what's it been like to have him around, and what have you observed from him now from your different lens?
It's been good. I think, obviously somebody that knows me as a person as well, if not better than most people, knows how I think, knows the type of coach that I want to be. So he holds me accountable. I think he also obviously knows, the landscape of what we're trying to do in the big picture. I think it's important to have a staff that understands big picture too, not always thinking short term, but what's best for our program now, but also in the future. And to know that you can have the ultimate trust in somebody that they're going to do things the right way because they want this program to succeed, I think is key. And also be able to work with the other guys. I think having staff cohesion amongst the assistant coaches is huge. There's no ego within our staff with on this staff, and I think that's important because players sense that, and you can never reach your full potential if there's guys always trying to compete or guys being territorial.
Sure.
And for us right now, we've had no issues. So, Coach, Thor really sets the tone for that, and it's cool to go through this experience with him.
Well, when you say attention to detail that all you guys have, to me, that speaks to him 100%. And just watching his De La Salle teams, like there was never a stone unturned. I mean, I remember watching state tournament games where something would go wrong. He'd call a quick timeout. The defense would be changed in the next possession. They'd already have it solved, right? For whoever he was, like, he knew if they're doing this press, here's where the ball goes. The detail and the level of preparation he put into those high school games and teams, I imagine carries over. But what's it like to have a guy like that, scouting and then delivering the scouting report and all those things that go with it?
No, it's big. I mean, I think, at this level, you're not necessarily going to out coach anybody. I know I'm not going to go in the Big Ten and out coach guys. But you're always trying to find an advantage, and that comes through scouting. It's like, okay, is there a unique way that we could guard something that could cause a little bit of a problem, or is there something we could do to take a certain set away? Are there tendencies? And I think having guys that are attention to detail guys that really, when you watch film, are you watching film or are you watching film? All that stuff's important. And when you got a guy that's been around it, and I like that he's worked at other places, being in other leagues, seeing it from a variety of ways can only help. But it trickles down, and when you got that within your staff where details matter, that's when you can really get some things done.
When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Texas A&M Corpus Christi, as well as wrap up a few things from the last week or so. It's Gaardsy solo today. No Mike Grimm. He'll be back next week, but we've got Ben Johnson here, and it's Gopher Basketball Weekly with Ben Johnson from Learfield. Welcome back. Final segment of Gopher Basketball Weekly with Ben Johnson. I'm Justin Gaard. The Gophers take on Texas A&M Corpus Christi tonight, 7 o'clock at Williams Arena. The pregame show starts at 6:30. If you want to go watch the 8-1 Gophers, gophersports.com. the place to find all your ticket info. You've talked a little bit about this the last week or so. You've actually talked a lot about it. You're playing, 6.5, 7 players most games. And I'm curious, you obviously have said that's not ideal. We don't want to, but that's kind of what we're doing right now. So how do you go about trying to develop, a little bit more of a bench? I noticed, just throwing Charlie in for minutes here, minutes there, that kind of gives you something there. But how have you thought about and talked about how you're going to try to develop a little bit more depth as things go along? Because it's difficult during a season to try to piece all that together.
Yeah, I think the first thing we talk about with anybody that wants to play more is that trust is built in practice. And I remember as a player, you want to tell the coach, hey, just throw me in, I'll figure it out, or you can trust me. It was like, that doesn't really work that way. So it's like you have to prove in practice that you know what you're doing. And then from the practice is when you get your minutes in the game. And I think our guys have really worked extremely hard, especially these last 2 weeks in practice, to make practice as competitive as possible, which has helped our team, but also to give themselves and give myself confidence that, they are ready to play. And again, I think, you go in every game as a coach thinking, okay, if there's a time in the game where we can get a guy in from, a segment here, let's try to do it. But then I think it just comes down to feel, time, score, matchups, who they have in, the flow of the game. But, I'm always trying to find a way to steal minutes for guys. And hopefully, as the season progresses, you want to be able to try to build that bench up and build that bench in and have it be part of your rhythm and how you win.
Well, you talk about stealing minutes for other guys. You also want to steal rest for the guys that are playing, right? Because you don't want them to be worn down, especially Big Ten. It's so physical. So how have you tried to navigate through that? Okay, we can give Peyton a minute here. We can give Jamison a minute here. We can mix and match. I assume that's kind of evolving as well.
Yeah, you try to use the long media timeouts to your advantage. If you get a guy before the media timeout, you got the built-in 2:30 or 3 minutes already. Can you get him another 2 or 2.5 minutes where now it's like a 4 or 5 minute, 6 minute rest? So I think it's just, stuff like that, where you're just trying to steal it here and there. Or if they make a sub and all of a sudden a team that went small or goes big, okay, is there a guy you can put in now because the matchups are more suitable? Or if, vice versa, they go small. Okay, they go small. Can we go small? And then allows us to sub in another perimeter and maybe, pull a guy for a couple minutes here or there. So much of it is in game, and trying to get a feel for, when you can sneak those minutes and those subs in.
And how do you take care of guys then in between games with wanting to go hard, wanting to get better, obviously wanting them to continue to practice because it's important to prepare for the next game, but also realize that, well, this guy just played 37 minutes the other day. Maybe let's let him chill for a minute.
Yeah, there's definitely that balance, because it's a long year and, you only have so many jumps and sprints in your legs. And so it's finding guys, those times to, when are we going to do walkthrough versus when are we going to go, 3/4 speed versus when we're going to go live and really compete. And you got to be mindful of, your schedule and who you have coming in and their style of play and all that kind of factors in. But, I also like to listen to our guys and our guys' bodies. And, if a guy tells me his legs feel good, well, maybe he can do a little bit more. If a guy tells me, or I notice he didn't come in and do his normal shooting, or, he's not his just normal self, or maybe he says, hey, I'm a little beat up. Then you got to be able to adjust. And I think you got to be able to flip it. The biggest thing is we need all of our guys, whether they start or come off the bench, to be locked in, ready to go on game day.
Does it help to have guys that have been through it a little bit that certainly know, you mentioned the word trust, that know that, Peyton Willis knows when he's good, right? And flip side, you're going to be he'll say, I'm good, I need this, or I need that. And that he's going to be truthful with that, right? Because he's been through the wars, so to speak.
Oh, 100%. And again, those guys know also what we're trying to do. So even if they are good, they maybe get 1 rep out of every 3, right? Just to kind of stay fresh. But because that trust is built in, I know they don't need to get all 3 reps for me to know that they know what we're doing. So then now you're able to get, a younger guy in there. You're able to get a younger guy back-to-back reps, or in a drill, he's able to do it, 2 or 3 or 4 times to help his growth. I think it's having trust in those guys. They understand their body more than any of us do. And then just being truthful and honest. And it's not, about trying to be, a superstar. It's about being smart and understanding that it's a long year.
Lastly, it's Texas A&M Corpus Christi tonight. The Islanders at Williams Arena. The pregame show at 6:30, tip off at 7. They are expected, they've got a lot of new players like everybody does, but in the Southland Conference, they are expected to be towards the top when this whole thing shakes out. So what have you learned about the Islanders and what type of challenges coming to the barn tonight?
No, they got a great collection of guys. Kind of did it like us. They had to hit the portal. They got a bunch of new bodies, brand new coach, came from Purdue, was in the Big Ten, known for a long time. They play a fast break, very similar to Michigan State type style. They want to play in transition. They want to be able to live in that paint, play incredibly fast, have interchangeable parts. For us, it's going to be that challenge. They're feeling really confident, as they should. 8-1 right now and rolling, consecutive wins back to back. So we're going to get their best shot. Now, I know for a fact that they're going to come in here and try to steal one. And now we got a little bit more of a target on our back. So We've got to be up to snuff. We got to ready to compete. There should be no difference in our approach and mentality in this game versus Michigan. And then be ready to move our feet, defend one-on-one, and guard the 3.
Well, congratulations on the big win over Michigan and everything that came with that. And good luck against the Islanders tonight. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thank you.
He is Ben Johnson. I'm Justin Gaard. Mike Grimm will be back with us next week. A reminder, 7 o'clock at Williams Arena tonight. The pregame show is at 6:30. Thanks, everybody, for listening. This has been Gopher Basketball Weekly with Ben Johnson from Learfield.